Ew, that used to be a pretty cool looking bull bar, but now it's just a piece of shit. But I plan to change that with some custom work done by yours truly. Mitch's Mediocre Metalwork. Trademark coming soon. Anyway, I didn't actually want the bull bar itself. I just wanted the mounting brackets and the winch cradle, but I didn't know this at the time. Anyway, enjoy my journey. So having lopped off the left and right sides, I brought it up to Sam's place and mounted it up. Like I said before, at this point, I didn't know that I was actually going to remove the entire... Oh, yeah, no, that we need to do something about that. So in my mind, I was just going to use a bit of pipe, well, I guess it's tube, to make an X-Rocks sort of style bar and call it good. But I don't know. I mean, just looking at it like this, I don't really see it working. So I decided to throw the whole thing in the bin and start from scratch. I made my way down to the local steel shop and asked them for some steel tubing. I slid 2 lengths of 40 NB tube into the car, and I had to drive home with the boot up. With the boot acting like a Rocket Bunny spoiler on my little Peugeot, I made it back to Sam's in great time. And I was able to start unloading the steel and began thinking about what I'm going to do. I don't even know what I'm going to do. But all I know is that I need to make a bull bar, and make a bull bar I was going to do. Now, I'm keeping the mountain winch... You know, I might go ahead and put a patent in for this too. I'm going to call it the people scooper. Have you ever just had a bit of a road rage with just a pedestrian on the street? You know, maybe they're taking just a little bit too long on the zebra crossing. Well, with the people scooper, you'll be able to take them out from the shins first, debilitate them, stop them from walking ever again. I think I'll leave this to the professionals. I know of a few people that would do a better job than me.
Hey, you go.
Anyway, I was happy enough to find out that the place where I got the steel from actually sold these bends as well. I think they're used for irrigation, but regardless, they're going to be very, very useful. I started off by cutting this pipe into a 1600mm length. This is the prime starting point for a front bumper, and I'm using an angle grinder because I don't have a drop saw. But with my hair looking like I've just stuck a fork into an outlet, I'm ready to fit this bar up and see how it fits. To fit this bar up and see how it fits, to fit this bar up and see how it... Oh, sorry, I was stuck on repeat there. But this bar needs a slight bend in it. It looks a little bit too flat at the front of this car. Even though it's quite a flat fronted car, it needs a bit of a bend. So I cut the bar in half and put a 5-degree angle on each side. You didn't see the wrap, by the way. With this cut made, I was able to then have a 10-degree bend in this pipe. Pretty looking good. I then broke out the Unimig and gave it a few tacks. And did you really build it yourself if you didn't hunch over like a prawn when you were welding up the bars? Oh, and I just realized something. I was wondering why I had such bad ray burn, but you can see I'm just punching these rays straight into my skin. Once I finished harming myself, I took the bar over to the car and I had a game plan. You know, up until this point, I didn't know how I was going to mount this bar to the actual cradle, but I have a genius idea. If I just cut a slot in each side of this pipe, it should just slide straight in over top of this sheet, giving a little bit of extra strength as well. And well, that's what I did. Before I did that, however, I needed to tack up this thing entirely. I needed to weld it with just tacks to make it look good, like I'm a good welder. I'm not. But with the grooves cut and this tube welded, I was able to mount it up and see how it looked. It doesn't sit down on the sheet too far, but enough to give a bit of rigidity. But with the single bend, it still wasn't looking as good as I'd want it to, so I went ahead and took another 2 pie cuts out and gave it a few more bend. Ooh, and with a few more bend, it looks pretty good. It's nice and close to the front bumper, which is what I want. I do want to move the winch cradle up though. It is sitting a little bit low, so I might have to cut a little bit of the grill out, but we'll see in the next video. But for now, I think I'll tack it up in place. So, it's a new day and I've come to work on my bull bar again because I don't know what else to do. But I was met with something a bit out of the ordinary. It was packed today at the B&B headquarters. So, while I waited for there to be a bit of room up at the shed, I decided to get the angle grinder and do some work down here. I wonder if I could use these extra hoops that I cut off my old bull bar to save myself a bit of steel. They have a little bit of a bend in them and I was trying to see how I can make it work and add a bit of strength while I'm at it. It's probably either that or just straight tube. I don't know. Let me know in the comments. Anyway, to get a bit of a clearer idea, I took the angle grinder to the curved bars and decided to cut them off and see how they would mount. Wonderful. Time to move up to the shed. Well, there goes the chances of getting ad revenue for this video.
Be gone.
Luckily, there was a bit of room at the front of the shed, so I hopped in the car and drove it up there. And boy, I love driving this car. I haven't driven it in ages and it hurts. But all in good time. I'm excited for when it gets back out on the tracks. But for now, it's time to make this bull bar, so let's go. Alright, it's time to weld these bad boys in place and see how it looks from afar. Except I missed one critical oversight. I made these hoops out of galvanized pipe, which is absolutely horrible to try and weld, especially to regular steel. And on top of that, I think it looked absolutely atrocious. I don't know what it was. I just hated how it looked. I apologize if you commented for this curved bit, but I decided to unweld it and take it off. I'd imagine that you've seen the thumbnail and seen that the bull bar has a big hoop in the middle, and that's what we're making now. I welded these two pieces together because they... Like I was saying, I welded these two pieces together because they didn't have a bend greater than 90 degrees, so I had to make do with what I had. I then took 2 offcuts of this steel pipe and laid them down. Ready to make the hoop, I grabbed the welder and tacked them together, being sure to keep the optimal welding prawn posture. As the saga of not having the right tools continues, I don't have a tube notcher, so I have to make do with an angle grinder. But after a bit of trial and error, I was able to get it to fit just well enough. It also helps if you hold your lips together like this. And just like that, I now have a thick metal tube at the front of my car that will knock anyone out if I hit them. Perfect. And then I did what I do best and put a few tacks in to hold it into place. Now, that ain't going nowhere. It was looking a little too much like me, unstable and thin. So I took some more offcuts and made them even smaller, and I'm planning to put them up there as a bit of a brace. You'll see what I mean. It was getting close to the work curfew though. I didn't want to upset the neighbors by making this bracket, so I had to work quick. But I essentially just used the old line the pipe up and take the angle grinder and make it fit trick. There are some mighty fine gaps to weld up, but that's a problem for another day. But as you can see here, these little bits sort of work as, I don't know, gussets to keep everything nice and strong and, let's face it, look cool. And I somehow managed to make it look somewhat symmetrical on the other side. I don't know how, I've only used the tape measure once, and that was to measure the middle of the front bumper. I've actually been using Sam's spanners as a form of measurement. For example, the length of tubes that are just welded into place is actually the length of Sam's 20mm spanner that he has in his third drawer down from the third toolbox in the shed. Anyway, I'm just about done for the day and the sun has already set, so I'm gonna pack up and clean up after myself. After all, Sam is letting me use this place, and I'm pretty sure he knows how messy I can get, so the least I can do is clean up as best I can. And would you look at that, my vision has come into fruition. While this wasn't my first idea for when I knew I needed to build a bull bar, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. I'm sure later down the line there's going to be things that I wish I changed, like maybe the height of that middle hoop, but we'll see. After all, it's not done. I still need to do a lot of bracing and connect the sliders up to it as well. On top of that, make sure that I can fit the winch in there. But that's all for another episode. Let me know what you think of this sort of design in the comments down below. It can be quite controversial, but I think it's going to look pretty good when the rest of the cage is on the car. Oh yeah, and I need to wrap the other side as well. But like I said earlier, in the next video we're going to be figuring out how to make this stronger and mount up just a little bit better because it is a little bit wobbly, and mount the winch and mount the there's a lot to do, but stay tuned.